Welcome to the Rockin' Review. You know, you may not know the name, but you definitely know the sound from playing on Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble albums, also Carole King, Larry Carlton, wait, Joe Bonamassa. It is Reese Wynans, and he's got a brand new solo album out that only took 50 years in the making. Sweet release. Thanks for joining me, Reese.
Hey, Eric. I'm glad to be here. How you doing?
You know what? It's so great. You and I were talking about this, and I watched the video that Joe did to where he's doing a sales pitch for your album. The last time we had Joe on the show, he's like going, hey, you got to check out Reese's new album. And the first track with Crossfire, Sam Mower singing lead.
How about that? I mean, I'll tell you the story about how we got Sam Moore. Is when back in the day when I was still with Stevie and we were writing songs for Instep. Tommy Shannon and Chris Layton and I were in the studio with a friend of ours, Bill Carter. Tommy came up with this bass line, and and Chris started playing his cool drums along with it, and somebody said, that sounds exactly like a Sam and Dave groove, but it's not. But it sounds right. Like it. And so moving forward to this year, I told Joe that story.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's it. We got to call Sam Moore to come sing on this song.
Oh my gosh.
It sort of had bookended a little bit.
It's just amazing, and the whole album, I got to tell you too, and if you're looking to hear some incredible music, from so many incredible artists, friends, because it is Reese Wynans and friends with Sweet Release. I mean, you've got Kebmo on here, Vince Gill, Joe Bonamassa, Chris Layton. It's like a who's who. Jack Pearson.
Oh yeah, we couldn't have done it without Jack. Jack was a big supporter of me doing this from the very beginning, and of course Joe Bonamassa agreed to produce this record, and it wouldn't have happened at all without his help, and so I'm really thankful for the Friends. It's more the Friends record than it is mine, I think. But,
well, I think it's pretty incredible. But I also wanted to bring up too, Reese. A lot of our viewers may not realize this, but being raised in Florida, you came from a family of 6. And you were like the only one that really kind of gravitated towards the piano.
Well, that's true. It was 7 kids in our family, but my mother played a little piano. My father played piano and organ. My grandmother played piano in Sunday school. So
right.
Everybody, all the parents were all tinkling the ivories, and we all took lessons as a kid, all of us. But everybody else had was more interested in doing other things, and for me, I really loved it. So I loved it right from the start. It was kind of boring a little bit, but you get through it, and you just move on to the next thing. And I just loved the way the piano sounded. And like I said, my dad was a piano player.
Right.
He liked to play stride piano. Now I don't know if you know what stride piano is, but it's sort of an old-fashioned style where the left hand is kind of hopping around, it's kind of striding around like this, and he was really, really good at that, and so I would watch him. I would sit there and listen to him at night after dinner while he played piano.
How amazing!
And I never got to be much of a basketball player. I should have been outside playing basketball, but I became the piano player instead.
I think this has worked out for you. Now, I also wanted to bring up, and you've got to help me on this story, Reese, because obviously preparing for our interview, it only took me a year to get you on from the first phone call I made to your house. But I got to know.
I'm sorry I didn't call you back, by the
way. It's been worth the wait. But how did you end up making music with Dickie Betts and Barry Oakley that later ended up helping to form the Allman Brothers?
Well, there's a story on that one too, because Dickie is from Sarasota, where I live.
Right.
And Barry Oakley had been working with a band called the Romans, and he had left that band. They were traveling, and he had left that band in the Sarasota area. And so he relocated right there in that area and started playing in the local bands, our band. So we hired Barry.
Yeah.
And we lost touch a little bit. Dickie and Barry and another friend of mine, Rhino, reappeared in Jacksonville with this band called The Second Coming. And I was still in Sarasota. Dickie's wife at the time, Dale, was the organ player and the girl singer. And she was expecting, and they had a house gig, and 6 nights a week, and they didn't want to, leave that chair empty. So when it became time for her to deliver, then they called me up to come and fill in.
Wow.
So I went up and from Sarasota to Jacksonville, sat in with him for a few days, and got hired
Right.
as the regular keyboard player. And Dale came back as the female singer, which really freed her up to play congas and do the singing. And so there I am with Dickie Betts and Barry Oakley and Rhino and myself. Across town is the band called the 1%, which turned into Leonard Skinner, and they're just getting started. Downtown is Scott Boyer, David Brown, and Butch Trucks, and the 31st of February, and they're just getting started playing in their bands on Sundays.
It was a rather kind of a fertile ground there.
Well, like I said, we played 6 nights a week in this psychedelic nightclub, and then Sundays we go out to the park and we'd have free jam sessions where all the other bands would come out and we'd all sort of mix and mingle and get a chance to jam and stretch out. And so that's how all this cohabitating of different bands happened, because they all had other gigs except for Sunday.
Yeah.
And then this guy from this wild man from Muscle Shoals, Duane Allman, started coming down. I guess he heard about it. He started coming down to Jacksonville to play with us on the weekend.
And so you were playing with Duane Allman.
Staying around for the Sunday jams. So that's how. So Duane loved Dickie. He loved Barry. He loved Butch, and he said, "This is my band.
Yeah,
we've got to have it." And he said, "Reese, I'm going to have 2 drummers and 2 guitar players. I can't have 2 keyboard players too." And I said, "Well, I understand. You know, that would be like having 2 different bands on stage at the
But you know what? It's paid off for you.
It worked out all right.
You know, you've kind of been a magnet for incredible guitarists throughout your career. You know, if you look at all the great, and obviously a lot of them are on here, because, you know, I was joking before we started the interview, Reese, I wish you could find some talented friends to join you on this album. I mean, it's like a who's who with Kenny Wayne and Kev Mo, all these people. It's just a great album, but it's like throughout your career, and you were talking also that you played on a little Brooks and Dunn song too that did pretty well.
I did a couple of Brooks and Dunn records. I think it was 3 or 4 of their CDs that I'm on. The one that's probably the most well known is their Song of the Year. It was called Believe.
Right.
And it was basically Ronnie and me playing organ on this song, and it seemed to reach a lot of people, and it was very successful.
I thought it was incredible also working with Carole King for 3 albums.
Carole King,
what a songwriter.
She wanted to record in Nashville, and I'll tell you the truth. When I started recording with Carole King on the first record, that's when I first thought that maybe I could make it in this business, because she is such a legend. You know, and just being in the same room with her, I felt like on hallowed ground. You know,
what a songwriter and a performer. I don't know how many times I've seen her in concert. Although I'll tell you what, I've always enjoyed about, you know, I can't play keys, you know, and definitely not, you know, Hammond organ like you can, but watching how you do your fingers on them, and you just make it look so easy, and you're having so much fun while you're doing it.
You better have fun while you're doing this, you know. I mean, I could be laying drywall or putting out a shingle in a roof, or driving a truck coast to coast. Instead, I get to play music, you know.
Right.
So you better have fun doing it.
Well, you know, and you're going to be back out on the road with Joe Bonamassa also, right, this year?
Right. We have 100+ shows that we're just getting ready to start out doing. Tomorrow we're leaving, as a matter of fact. So I had a couple of cruises and festivals and theaters around the world. So it'll be a big year for us and for him.
Now, are you going to do some solo gigs too, possibly with this new album?
Well, I'm wondering where I'm going to squeeze it in, but the idea of doing that really appeals to me. But the thing is, it is Reese and friends,
right?
So I'm going to have to round up my friends to see if we can work their schedules out.
Well, you know, you've been Nashville-based since 1992, and I think a few of your friends would probably come out. And you have been known to play at 3rd and Lindsley a few times. Oh
man, I love that. I love playing at that place.
Now, I got to ask you, Reese, it's such a great album, and I'll tell you what, and once again, for our viewers, buy a copy. However you take, you know, your music, whether you download it, CD, vinyl. One of my favorite tracks on here is Blackbird, which, yes, this is the Beatles version, but done on piano by Reese Wynans. Reese, where can people buy this album?
This album is available any place you could buy a Joe Bonamassa CD, you can buy this CD at J&R Adventures, JoeBonamassa.com, ReeseWynans.com. I believe it's going to be in the big box stores, Barnes & Noble, Best Buy, so any place that sells CDs.
You know what, and my suggestion too on it, Reese, this might be a nice addition to the Joe Bonamassa table, to where you're picking up a t-shirt or a hat, and maybe you need a Reese Wynans and Friends, CD also. Just a thought.
I think so. I think everybody needs one.
Well, I'll tell you what, Reese, I hope you don't wait another 50 years to make such a great album. Every track on here is just incredible, with all the musicians, joining you, and obviously your musicianship. It's a pleasure to listen to it. Reese Wynans and Friends. It is sweet release. Be sure and buy or download your copy and go see this guy live on tour with Joe Bonamassa. Thanks for watching The Rockin' Review.